All right, welcome back to another episode of the Top of Off Cricket Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Henry, and as usual, we are talking everything West Indies cricket. Well, I got my boy Sam with me tonight because Walter's doing some family things, and we gotta respect that, but the podcast must go on. So, we still on this 27, because 27 is a very important number right now. But we are of the belief that with how cricket has evolved over the last 60 years, we kind of think that, a lot of people are making a mountain out of a molehill. What are your thoughts on that, Sam?
Yeah, Kevin. What I did was to go to the stats. I went to Cricinfo and I pulled up some data for test playing countries. And what I saw was that, the 27 by the West Indies, while it was shocking, we didn't expect that to happen. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at what has been happening, not only with West Indies cricket, but also what has been happening to other test playing nations, then when you put it in that context, that 27 is not as ridiculous as people are making it out to be, right? So
I got a question. Do you think people kind of like personalized it a little bit too much?
Yeah, because it's West Indies cricket.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that West Indies is not the West Indies of the 1980s. We've been doing poorly. That's a fact. We've been doing poorly, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially as regards our batting, right? So when we get a low score, it becomes a big deal. If Australia tomorrow makes 40 runs, they're not going to get the backlash as much as we got, So that's my take on that.
So given the fact that we know the systemic problems that exist in West Indies cricket, right? Do you think people should have held back a little bit and be like, look, yes, this is 27, but this is because we got all these things happening. Right? It wasn't like West Indies were flying and then all of a sudden, boom.
There you go.
27, right?
Go. Yeah, of course.
So that is kind of what's worrying me. And once again, the topic of Darren Sammy, the CWI president, comes up. Dr. Kishore Shallow, director of cricket, Miles Bascom, and people are calling for their heads.
Right.
Given all that has been happening, and with how long West Indies cricket has been, it's a slow decline that has brought us to this point. Do you think people should be calling for Sammy's head and Dr. Kishore Shallow's head, or as in some people put it, clear the board out?
Of course not. Of course not. It's a rough start for Darren Sammy. I know we've done an episode where we said, trust Sammy's process, right? Give him some time. Would we have had this same reaction if West Indies had lost by 40 runs? Let's say we'd actually put up some runs on the board and only lost by 40 or 50, or even losing by 100 runs last week. Would we have had this same reaction, right? I don't think we would have. A lot of folks would have been concerned about the 3-0, right? But let me back up a bit. I go back again to Bridgetown, right? I think the energy, when we talk about full of energy, our players went into Bridgetown full of energy. And we dropped a lot of catches. You can't do that and expect to win a game, right? But even with those drop catches, we stood a chance to perhaps eke out a win. Not taking away anything from the Australian team, right? But the probability of us winning that first test match would have been greater if not for a certain umpire giving two of our batsmen who were set, giving them out in the first innings for the West Indies side. And as I said repeatedly, batting second, you want to make that first innings count. You don't leave the job for the second time you're batting. And I think that was a key moment in the series. Think about if we had won at Bridgetown. Think about what that would have done for Craig Braithwaite's mental outlook and what have you. So our players, I think, mentally after Bridgetown, they were affected deeply, right? And when you're not comfortable, as Andy Roberts said, when you're not comfortable, certain cricketing instincts go out the door, especially for players who haven't played a whole lot of first-class matches like happens in other territories or in other jurisdictions, sorry.
Or who are not informed.
There you go. So you do things, again, based on instinct, not cricketing instinct, but your own human instinct. Good? So that's how I see it.
So with all that said and done, you decided to take a deep dive. You said, you know what?
Right.
Let me jump in here and let's take a broader look at this thing.
Right.
So we went all the way back to 1960.
Right.
Tell top of our fans, give them the broader picture of where we were then as opposed to where we are now. So they can get a bigger picture. Right.
So let's go. In fact, as you're saying it there, I probably should have gone back to the 1950s so we could get that New Zealand low score in there. But I stopped at 1960, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Good. So here we go. So this is for the period let's say the 60s, essentially, that decade. All right. And what I want folks to focus on here would be the win-loss ratio. So I'm looking at two sets of things. I have some slides which look at the win-loss ratio. And then the last set of slides will highlight the low scores. So you can see the low scores in the very last column. But what I did, I got all of this from Cricinfo. Cricinfo allows me to sort teams based on different metrics. So I can sort teams based on the amount of games they won, the amount of games they drew, the amount of win-loss ratio, their averages here in terms of these averages are with respect to runs per wicket, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you have runs per over, which is an interesting metric we need to talk about too, right? So I can do the ranking based on that. So for the 1960s, what we see is that England is on top in terms of win-loss ratio. And ideally, what you want to have is a win-loss ratio above 1.
Yeah.
So above 1 means that you're winning more matches than you are losing, right? And
you're more than breaking even.
Sorry?
You're more than breaking even.
There you go. Right. And so what we have here is that for the 60s, we see 3 teams on top of the world. England, followed by Australia, followed by the West Indies. All right? We go to the 70s now. And what do we see? Well, we can forget about South Africa. South Africa played only 4 matches. They won all of those, right?
Yeah.
But for teams playing, let's say, more than 40 matches or what have you for that period, what we see again, England is on top. West Indies is now moving up. And Australia is now at number 3. Those are the teams which have a win-loss ratio above 1. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the 1980s, fire in Babylon. The West Indies had a win-loss ratio of 5.375. Let me say this. No other team for any of the decades. I only looked at these numbers in terms of decades, mm-hmm. right? If you look at it in terms of decades, no other team has gotten a win-loss ratio as high as the West Indies team got in the 80s. When we look at the numbers there now, the teams, we see Pakistan coming in at number 2. We see New Zealand at number 3. Australia is actually
the mighty Aussies.
Right. A win-loss ratio below 1. All right. So, of course, when you think of Pakistan, it's interesting here, you know, because when you think of Pakistan in that period, who we think about? We think about
Imran Khan, Abdul Qadir, and folks of that nature. Salim Malik, Javed Miandad.
Was Wasim
Akram.
The late 80s?
He came around mid-80s.
All right, good. So it's interesting when we look at, you know, teams, you know, West Indies and Pakistan, the bowling would have been, you know, world class, if you want to call it that, and helped in these victories, no doubt. Not to take away anything from the batters, of course. The 90s now, win-loss ratio. South Africa moves to the top. Australia, of course, for South Africa, their thing starts from 1992, when they got back into Test cricket or what happened. But still,
don't take anything away from them as a new entrant, because these are people who wouldn't have played Test cricket before, except in the Wessels.
There you go. So that's something to be, definitely be proud of. And we noticed that their win-loss ratio is at 2. Australia at 2, so Australia is back into things now. Of course, it's the period when they took back the Frank Worrell in 1995. So, you know, Pakistan 1.5, West Indies 1.1, and India just breaking even there in terms of wins and losses. All right. So now we have 5 teams, Test teams, that are breaking that mark.
Things start to get interested in the 2000s.
All right.
Talk to me.
2000s now, the early 2000s, first decade of the new century. Australia moving up the win-loss ratio, going up to 4.3. South Africa is still up there. England is now there. India has now moved from breaking even there at now 1.4. Sri Lanka, right? Pakistan is at 0.967, which is, you know, we could say it's almost close to breaking even, right? Where's the West Indies? All the way down, 0.305.
But when we look at these through the past decades, right?
Yeah.
We looked all the way to the far right corner, and we're noticing something of a decline there. And the last column that shows
the low scores.
The low scores, they are increasing, right?
Yeah, the number of low scores that we see are also quote unquote increasing. But Kevin, the next slide is going to deal with the low score. So let me just finish up with this and we jump to the low scores, right? 2010 to 2019, we see where we have India is now moved into the top. In fact, India would have broken Australia's win streak, right? But this would have been before 2010, if I recall. So it would have been before 2010 they broke that streak. Remember that?
I can't remember. I think
look at that. There was some series when India, and I think that the series was actually in India. But in any case, though, India is now on top, close to 2 as the ratio. South Africa is still there. Australia 1.5, England, New Zealand, well, we can take out Afghanistan given the number of games they would have played, right?
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, for that period, West Indies actually had an increase now from 0.3 to now 0.5.
Yeah.
So for this decade, they're actually doing better than they did in the early 2000s. Okay? So this could be a feather in the cap for Darren Sammy. He had something to do with that period, yes?
Yes, he did.
All right. 2020 to 2025, July 2025, Australia is on top, South Africa just below them. And we can understand this. These are the 2 teams which would have played in the Test Championship about a month ago or so, right? England still in the thing. New Zealand, we know New Zealand would have won the first Test Championship, if memory serves right, yes. India is up there. So yeah, West Indies dropped a bit. Now, we got to be very careful now because this is only 6 years or 5.5 years of the decade. So who knows what will happen as time goes by. Now, I switch gears now and I look at the last column, as you mentioned before. So in the last column now, I'm able, using Cricinfo, to rank the teams based on low scores. So if we go back to the 60s, we see where Australia had the lowest score of any team of 78. West Indies at that time had a low score of 91. All right. Now, this here is from the perspective of the teams which are batting.
Okay.
Now, here's an interesting thing we want to look at also in terms of batting. Look at the runs per over. Right? Here we see Australia as a batting team. Well, not only Australia, but all the teams there, the runs per over is nowhere near 3.
Yeah.
Right? Something to watch. All right. This information here now is from the bowling end of things. Right? So so England would be the team which would have bowled Australia out for 78. If I'm to go back to that number there, 78. So England is the team which would have bowled out Australia for 78. Right? So these figures here can actually be different from the numbers we see over here. Right? In fact, if you notice, we see South Africa there with a 138, but that's from the bowling perspective, right? Some team they bowl out for that.
Yeah.
We look at the runs per over from the bowling team again, and we see we're not breaking the 3 runs per over mark at this time. We move on to the 70s. We see where these are batting teams again. India made a low score of 42, and in fact, what I think is instructive here, if we can look at scores below 60. So in the 60s, no score below 60. In fact, no score below 70. Move to the 70s, we see 1 score below 60. All right. West Indies lowest score at that time was 109. So by the way, we have to be careful with these numbers, because it could be the case that a team, let's say England got 64, that's their lowest score. But England at that time could have also had a low score of maybe, I don't know, 70 or 80 or what have you, right? They could have, technically speaking. So these are just the lowest scores for a team.
Yeah.
All right? Not the lowest scores in general, just the lowest scores for a team. All right? We go to the 7th, so this is 70 still, but this is now on the bowling perspective. And we see here in terms of bowling, we see where West Indies was able to bowl out a team for 71. If we go to the 60s, if I can jump back, the lowest score West Indies would have bowled a team out for would have been 98 in the 60s. 70s, like we said, they bowl a team out for 71. Jump to the 80s now. And interestingly, the West Indies made a low score of 53, right? Of all the teams in the 1980s, West Indies had the lowest score in an innings, right? Fire in Babylon, the big West Indies team, right? Low score. And Pakistan, can we be surprised there? Again, I don't know the match. We can dig deeper and find out.
Yeah, we can dig deeper and find that.
Match, right? But there we go. The mighty West Indies team. And we got to take this into context, the lowest score for that period. Yeah. So in a period when you're not having too many low scores, West Indies got a low score of 53. All right? To the 90s now. We all remember Courtliam rules. That was a Trinidad match.
Yeah.
94?
94, right. 1994.
Good. What a wonderful year that was, right?
It was indeed.
The bowling and the batting, right? Lara at the ARG.
ARG, yeah.
You see? Oh man. So here we go. Low scores for, but interestingly now, what do we see here? We see 2 low scores below 60. West Indies got a 51, England got a 46. And there we go. So the 51 that the West Indies got bowled out for, that was Australia bowling them.
Ironically, that 51 was at the Queen's Park Oval, just like we bowled out England for 46 at Queen's Park Oval.
There we go. Right? All right. Fast forward now to the early 2000s. West Indies, again, the lowest score for all the teams in that period. Lowest.
Yeah.
And what's more interesting here too, we see 4 scores below 60. If you want to use 60 as sort of a benchmark. 4 scores below that. So England got a 51, Pakistan a 53, Zimbabwe 54. But in terms of the bowling, now we see, five low scores there. What was this before? So 4. All right. So 5 scores below that 60 mark, if you want to use that metric. And again, we see West Indies being, in terms of bowling, getting wickets or what have you, bowling out teams for low scores or what have you, right? But we see, notice here though, this trend where we're seeing much more lower scores.
An increase of teams scoring less than 60.
Right, less than 60. But I don't have all the answers there, but one can say that, teams are, are working on their bowling, tightening their bowling and the like, bowlers being more efficient, what have you. But at the same time, I forgot this as I was going through. The runs per over though, Kevin, watch for that. The runs per over now, let's go back for a bit. The 80s, we saw runs per over, the batting side. Look at that. West Indies having the highest runs per over in the 80s, 3.15, right? Prior to that, that wasn't the case. You weren't seeing teams with high. Well, actually, no. The 70s, West Indies batting in the 70s, they had some West Indies and South. Well, forget about South Africa, but West Indies is the team with the highest runs per over. If you take out South Africa, in the 70s, right? In the 60s, we didn't see that, right? So 70s, we see West Indies on top in terms of runs per over. In the 80s, West Indies again dominated 3.15. If we come to the 90s now, here again, West Indies dominating. So even though Australia was doing well in that period, they were still below the three runs per over mark. All right. To the 2000s, Sri Lanka. I'm not surprised by Sri Lanka. We all remember that World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ODI, but still, Sri Lanka has been a team that, But here we notice how many teams now are making runs per over above 3, right? Good. So I think we covered this in terms of low scores. We go to the 2010 or the 2010s now, if that's the correct thing to look at. We can take out Ireland there. So we have Bangladesh, New Zealand, Australia, the mighty Australia, Pakistan, Zimbabwe, England. 6 teams, if we take out Ireland, 6 teams making scores below that 60 mark. Right?
The numbers increasing.
Yeah, of low scores or scores below 60. Right? Bowling, interestingly, in this period, we see where West Indies, this would have been Bangladesh. They bowled out for 43, right?
Yeah.
So 2020, 2025, we have the infamous 27 at the top here. But let's look. 27, 36 by India in Australia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, South Africa. So 5 teams again with scores below that 60 mark. And with these numbers,
New Zealand just eking out above there at 62, England at 68.
There you go, right? So we got us, there's something happening in terms of bowling and bowling efficiency and so on to bring these scores. And of course, now look in the runs per over column, right? In this period, we have only one test playing nation or team with runs per over below 3, and that is the West Indies.
So,
right?
Interesting to note, because that has been brought up in several sections with regards to our batting average. I think we have the lowest batting average of all the teams. It's right there. If you go back to 2020-25, 19.1 .56. Lowest batting average. You look at the top there.
Yeah.
Along with that, that 2.90.
No, but be careful there, Kev.
No, hold on.
Might be this is likely to be runs per wicket or something. I have to check this average back.
No, that's runs per over. If you go back to what's the name, to the they're showing the batting and the bowling. Go back to 2020 to 2025.
Right. Oh, here. Right. Oh, you mean the runs per over there? Yeah, man. Yes.
Right.
Of course. At the top. Right.
We got the lowest batting average of 23.35 of all the nations, and the lowest runs per over. And that in itself speaks to where we are as a cricket team. You understand? When Darren Sammy came in, became the white ball coach, there was an emphasis. He was trying to put an emphasis on batsmen working the ball around, getting more singles, because in the Super 50 and the T20 tournaments, right? And all these numbers are speaking to that, right? Yeah. These numbers are speaking to that. Added to that, one of the main reasons why you're seeing teams scoring below 60 or let's say below 70 is the advent of T20 cricket. If you look through the decades, you'll notice more teams are getting bowled out for less than 70. You understand? Also, if you look in the column that speaks to draws, you will notice the number of draws have significantly gone down. There's not a whole lot of draws being played anymore. Right. It's either I win this game or I lose this game.
Yeah. Yes. But one correction though, Kevin. The average you're seeing there is the average runs per wicket on this particular thing. Because this is for the batting. So this is average runs per wicket actually. All right, which is a similar.
Right, that's what I'm speaking to. Is the batting average?
How much? Right.
It's the batting average. That's what I'm speaking to. But we got just a few minutes. Let's wrap it up here. This 27 that people are screaming. You know, when I look at it, whether you're making 68 or you're making 27, whether you're making 46 or you're making 27, your team would have done poorly. Right? It's rare. I don't think I have ever seen a team score below 70 and came back and win that game. I would have to go do some research and look at that. But it might be slim to none. And as we said before, had West Indies in the chase of 285 at Bridgetown, had we scored 230, what would the conversation be like, right? At St. George's, chasing just over 300, 304. Had we been bowled out for 240, 250, what would the conversation be like? Chasing 204 or whatever the case it might be a couple of days ago, had we been bowled out for 150, 160, what would the conversation be like? But I want people to keep in mind, the problems are still there, right? All that would have done was mask the problems.
Yep.
That's all that would have happened. It would have masked the problems. So I'm gonna say again, like I've said in all the recent episodes that we have done, a lot of people just need to step back and breathe, understand where West Indies cricket are. For Dr. Kishore Shallow, Miles Bascom, Chris Derrin, Darren Sammy, and everybody in the West Indies Cricket Board leadership positions, it's the best time to reset. Not to forget, all the territorial boards should look at themselves, all the territorial coaches should look at themselves and go, you know what? We have made a contribution to this mess. This is not a Cricket West Indies alone problem. This is a collective problem throughout the territories. Let us fix it together.
The legends to the former players to have a role.
Exactly, right? The legends, everybody have a role.
They can't wait on the territorial boards. They can't wait on CWI. They can do things.
Yeah.
They can do things if they want to. Nikita Miller does things here in Jamaica. They can do things.
Darren Ganga and Samuel Badri doing things in Trinidad. I was sitting there today and I'm thinking to myself, right? I said to myself, what if Desmond Haynes had an academy in Barbados, right? There's a Brian Lara Academy in Trinidad, along with the Darren Ganga and Samuel Badri. In Guyana, there's a Carl Hooper Academy, or a Shivan Carl Hooper Academy, or Ramnare Shivan Carl Hooper Academy. In Jamaica, you got Nikita Miller, and he could join forces with a Jimmy Adams and Courtney Walsh. In the Leeward Islands, you could have a Courtney Ambrose, Viv Richards, Andy Roberts. What if?
Yeah.
What if? Just what if? Every year we have a tournament involving these young academies.
There you go.
Just what if? So instead of lambasting and criticizing, we go, you know what? This is what we can do. This is how we help. Because it's easy to criticize. That's the easiest thing to do. Not many people are willing to come with solutions. Closing thoughts, Sam, before we run.
Oh, as a people, and I do mean as a people, we all just need to put our best efforts forward to fix West Indies cricket. Stop pointing fingers and do whatever little you can. Everybody, our politicians, our past players, everybody just gotta work towards it, especially when it comes to batting.
Yep.
We gotta work overtime to fix our batting. Yeah.
However y'all feel, less criticism, more solutions.
You know.
Hand wash hand.
They can't come clean.
They can't come clean. Anyway, stop off, we out.
We're out.
Boom.
All right, later.
Later.
Yeah.